Hello there, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, the internet, and the like, and welcome back to Team Fortress 2. Today, I have some soldier gameplay starting off on Payload Race Nightfall, and then moving over to a defensive round on Payload Frontier. And today, I'm going to be having a little bit of discussion of the weapons that I'm using, and those, of course, are the Liberty Launcher, the Reserve Shooter, and the Disciplinary Actions. That way, I can whip my teammates if they aren't going to be cooperating, or if they're just ignoring my standards on how I play this game, but sometimes they just don't listen and the whip doesn't even give them the speed bonus, and that's something that we can maybe talk about later. For now, I'd like to address something about the Liberty Launcher. One, I've been really harsh on this weapon because of a past experience I had with it while playing with a loadout, and that was because I was not using a shotgun. So my opinions might vary a little bit right here, but bear in mind, this weapon is still heavily situational, and I'm gonna get into further detail on that after I address the second thing, which is the mistake I made about the Liberty Launcher's rocket speed. It is not identical to the direct hit. It is actually 40% faster, so it actually is a little bit different, and I guess you could say it makes hitting some things a little bit more easy, but I don't know, having a weapon like this with the same rocket speed as the direct hit would almost make it more redeemable for me, in terms of the gameplay sense, and we're gonna get right into that. So, the Liberty Launcher deals less damage as a rocket launcher. It is one of the few in the game that has 4 shots. You take less rocket jumping damage when you actually perform a jump successfully. I think it's around 30 or 27 damage as opposed to the usual 45 to 50, which can be really nice for mobility and rollouts. And yeah, I did really enjoy this weapon very much, and I'm not exactly pleased to say I still dislike it, because the rocket damage at maximum is around 83, and at the mid-range can be around 40 to 44, so it's pretty pathetic if you're at the close range and you're fighting a heavy, because if that heavy turns a corner and you both don't expect each other, you're gonna be wasting all of your rockets, and by traditional game balance is the word I'm looking for, as in, if there weren't any random crits enabled, you would probably not win that fight, and the heavy would just manage to spin up his minigun in time to deal the full amount of damage, and that would just essentially lead to your death, unless you manage to get a lucky shotgun kill. As I said, I didn't really have a good opinion on the Liberty Launcher, because just on offensive scale, nobody wants any freedom. If you try charging with this weapon, you're not going to be doing much damage, unless you have a pretty solid team. Then you're mostly just going to be getting assists, and even then, because of the lower damage, it's just not a weapon that I would consider very compatible with a lot of other different weapons. Like, basically, this is a weapon where if you have a secondary slot, you must have something that shoots projectiles, either a shotgun or the Righteous Bison. I would not really recommend you use any other alternative. It could work if you really just wanted to be a rocket jumping soldier who goes after melee kills only, but even then, why not just equip the rocket jumper? You could argue that you could use the Liberty Launcher to its best potential with the fact that it at least deals damage as a rocket launcher, but the damage is still pretty noticeable, and as I said, if you got into a fight with a heavy, you're probably not going to win that fight. If you had just a regular rocket launcher, you would probably win. So, aside from the fact that you basically have to equip this weapon with a secondary that actually shoots bullets or laser pulses, I guess. I'm not really sure what the correct term is for that. I could just say projectiles if I really wanted to. But aside from all that, what I mainly want to know is why the Liberty Launcher received its changes, because this was just completely overhauled a while ago. There was no exact particular reason as to why it was balanced in this way. I mean, in the everlasting quest to balance everything in TF2, which is probably impossible, what makes this so special to have it balanced when the black box pretty much did a very similar thing already, and that weapon has not only not received any changes, but it's probably the second most popular rocket launcher I see people using in just about any server. It really confuses me, because the black box, you lose one rocket, and for the trade-off, you get 15 health back on a successful hit. But the Liberty Launcher did a very similar thing. You got 40% faster rockets, and you only lost one rocket, so everyone knows that reloading in this game can be a pretty big deal, especially with the soldier, because he is mainly an offensive class. So what made him so special that, or what made the Liberty Launcher so special that it had to be nerfed? I don't really see the point in it. It just seems too situational to me. I think that's all I really have to say about the Liberty Launcher at this point, is that if you're going to be playing with it, one, you should probably have a weapon in your secondary slot, not a backpack like a buff banner, and not even the gunboats or the man-treads. Those probably won't do you much justice in terms of the damage department. And yeah, I think that's all I need to say about that. We should probably just move on and talk a bit about the reserve shooter. The one thing that confuses me about the reserve shooter is the fact that it was buffed. I don't understand why. The thing had 3 shots before, and the fact that it has the mini crit bonus when you pull it out, it only has the mini crit bonus for 3 seconds actually. Like, you have to switch weapons again after 3 seconds pass to get the mini crit bonus on people who are airborne. But now it's been up to 5 seconds of extra mini crit time. And not only that, but the weapon now has 4 shots. I guess I could sort of see why it was buffed, because not a lot of people were really giving this shotgun much love. But part of the reason it was the way it was because it paired up pretty well with the Liberty Launcher. And now I could see, if one weapon was reverted back to its original state, it probably wouldn't be as compatible as it would with the other not having any changes. Like, if the Liberty Launcher were to get its old stats back, but the reserve shooter kept its new stats, that would probably be overpowered. So I guess this was sort of, again, part of the everlasting quest to make sure everything is balanced in this game, so that way if you did make a reverting change, you would have to make 2 reverts just to make sure everything was in proper order, and that way nobody would be complaining about the reserve shooter being overpowered. But I just don't understand why this needed a buff. It already did its job. I guess the mini crit second time is actually kind of important, but then again, you already have fast weapon switch, and it's pretty dumb fighting against Degreaser Pyros. I mean, the Degreaser already has like 70% faster weapon switch. Why not just stack up onto that and make it like 100% faster? It's not like the Pyro is broken enough with a lot of his crit-based options as is, so let's just make it better. Well, yeah, I think I could safely say that for this loadout, and for this loadout only, the reserve shooter is a very good secondary option when you're playing with the Liberty Launcher. If you want to give some people some freedom, you gotta give them an extra dosage of justice, and that of course belongs to the reserve shooter. And that was the corniest thing I said in this entire gameplay commentary. So right there you saw I died like twice in a row. I'm not exactly doing the best at the moment, but one thing I could say about the disciplinary action is that it's really good pairing up in this setup with the fact that you're able to just whip a teammate once you run out of spawn, and even if there's a teleporter, it would probably be good if you just rocket jumped your way there anyway, because the Liberty Launcher gives you extra access to more mobility without taking as much self-damage as you normally would, which is a very nice feature. So I would say that soldiers probably don't have as exclusive teleporter rights as most people do, but only in this situation. If I had to set up like a stock loadout as a soldier, I'd be a little bit more concerned about doing a rollout, because I would probably just end up in the front lines. If there weren't any like healing sources, or if somebody took the latest health pack, I'd probably die rather quickly. So you just have to pick your battles carefully. I would say that this soldier just doesn't have as high a teleporter priority if he's just able to rocket jump his way away. And the same could sort of be said for the Demo Man, but he takes a bit more damage from his own explosives, so yeah, I guess there is that to consider. Disciplinary action. Yeah, I kind of wanted to discuss the fact that this weapon has very terrible hit detection, and that's really terrible on teammates. It is advertised to have extra range, which was once only exclusive to the Demo Man, if I recall correctly, because his swords have twice the melee range of any standard melee weapon. But One thing that does confuse me, and I'm gonna go off on a bit of a tangent here, this is actually a comparison between two weapons the soldier has in his arsenal. Those would be the riding crop and the katana. The half-side toichi, actually, more specifically. Because the demo man already has twice the melee range when he equips the katana, but the soldier doesn't. And clearly, when you go into third-person mode, I have seen some footage of this before, if the soldier is not standing right directly next to someone when he swings the sword clearly, like, goes right through the person if you're just a few steps away, but it doesn't deal any damage. Now, the reason this is relevant to the disciplinary action is because that's what happens with the disciplinary action. Like, the exact opposite occurs. If you're standing a few feet away from an enemy, then if you swing that whip, you're gonna get that hit detection. You're gonna deal some damage, which... the thing that's really buggy about this weapon is the fact that you're able to run right through teammates, which I guess I can see is understandable. It might be something to do with the source engine, how, because the way things are set up with the team-based options, how you run right through a person, and as such, it becomes more difficult to whip them if they're inside you, but really, if they're far away from you, I still think that the hit detection is bugged, because if they're a few feet away from you, if you hit an enemy, it's going to deal damage, but if you hit a teammate, that smack is not going to make them run faster. Just, it doesn't happen. I don't know. Again, it could just be a bug, or maybe it's something that's just irreparable at this point. It's just a little something that kind of confuses me. And, yeah. So, in conclusion to all of this commentary, the main point of this is I was kind of doing a bit of a retrospective on basically what weapons were changed ever since the... it was the Uber update, wasn't it? Yeah, it was the Uber update from way back when. That was back in 2011, around midsummer, I think. I could be wrong on that. Somebody might need to check that source for me. But when these weapons were first added, they were pretty amazing. And now, well, the reserve shooter is pretty nice, I guess you could argue, but the Liberty Launcher is fairly mediocre. And a lot of weapons had just received some really odd changes that I don't think they really deserved. Or, well, maybe some of them did, like the Tomislav. I know that one was just downright unacceptable, and it was nerfed to hell, so now nobody uses that. But then the Soda Popper was nerfed for the Scout, and the Hype Meter used to give you mini-crits, and you weren't able to control when you activated those. But now, it gives you a set of mini-jumps, which you can activate on will, but it's... I don't really think it's that practical. But, those are probably weapon discussions for another time. Basically, what I wanted to see is what the differences were between then and now, and I guess I could sort of say there's probably not much going for this, but it would be really nice if they changed the Liberty Launcher back to the way it was before, because, again, going back to the black box comparison, I don't really understand what made the Liberty Launcher so special so that it had to be nerfed, but oh well, let me know what you think in the comments section below. These are basically what I think about these weapons now, and yeah, that's just gonna wrap things up, so thank you guys very much for watching, have a great day or evening, and I guess I will see you in the next video.